This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, we're going to find out who would win in a fight between the sorcerer characters Eclipso versus Malekith. Now, why are we doing Eclipso this episode?
Because yesterday was an eclipse.
That is correct. And really, there's no other reason to it. These are great characters, though. Malekith is a Thor villain, and actually he was the villain in the Thor the Dark World movie. And Eclipso, I believe, is a JSA villain.
He's like JSA, Spectre, but also recently an Amethyst villain.
Amethyst, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it should be a magical good time later on this episode as we input the character stats, run simulations, and find out who will win. Before we get into that, we're going to break down the latest comic book movie news that came out this past week, of which there was just one news item, and that is that the Fantastic Four film has cast Julia Garner as the Silver Surfer.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
Our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you love listening and chatting about Marvel and DC? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier lets you listen to this podcast without ads and gives you access to its Discord chat group, where you can chat with Johnny DC and Marvelous Joe. The Fantastic 4 tier gives you that and more, with 2 bonus episodes each month, including bloopers and top 10 shows where Johnny and Joe count down your favourite Marvel and DC subjects. The X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of Dynamic Duel, where every month you help the host choose what to review and who to fight against each other. And finally, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier allows aspiring podcasters to create their own battle-focused show using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results to announce on your show. Pitch the twins your show via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by reaching out to them on social media. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast.
Be sure to tune into the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network this week, guys, including Max Destruction, which pits your favorite action heroes from film and television against each other. This week, 11 from Stranger Things is facing off against Matilda.
And on the Syndro World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between fan-favorite anime characters. This Thursday, we'll find out who would win between Sanji from One Piece against Might Guy from Naruto.
And on the Console Combat podcast, hosts John and Dean find out who would win in fights between popular video game characters. In yesterday's episode, they found out who would win in a fight between Scott Pilgrim and Toon Link. Want to give a big shout out to all 3 of those shows. I think we had a fantastic crossover event for April Fools, where collectively we found out who would win in a fight between Godzilla and Ultraman. Super proud of those guys. Be sure to check out their shows.
Visit dynamicpodcasts.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all of the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network.
But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize. A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on Instagram for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week, we asked, what is your favorite anime and why? We did not get a lot of answers for this one.
Yeah, in fact, we got only one answer from Travis Herndon. So I just want to give a slow clap for our listeners. Yep. Unless your name is Travis Herndon, this clap is for you. And if your name is Travis Herndon, it's also for you, but it's meant non-sarcastically. So let's go ahead and hear his answer. He said,
What's up, Dynamic Dudes? Travis here. So my favorite series would have to be Berserk. If I had to describe Berserk to you, I would think of it as sort of Game of Thrones meets Dark Souls. Just the fact that it's dark, it's gritty, the characters are real. The main character is this tragic person that like overcomes like great hardships and everything. If you're a fan of dark fantasy, I would definitely recommend Berserk to you.
So I've never seen Berserk, but I have learned about it through the Syndro World podcast, and it seems like a pretty dope show.
Yeah, the backstory to the main character, Guts, seems pretty intense and crazy, but it looks like an epic show for sure. Zach on Syndro World did do a dual episode with the character of Guts. So if you want to learn more about Berserk, I would recommend listening to his episode and also watching the anime. Congrats to Travis for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news!
All right, this past week we found out that the Fantastic Four film has cast the Silver Surfer in the movie. The character will be played by Julia Garner, who is a 3-time Emmy winner who won for her role in the Netflix series Ozark, and she also got a nomination for Inventing Anna. I've never seen any of those shows. I've heard Ozark is fantastic. I really don't know anything about Julia Garner, but according to a sizzle reel I saw on YouTube, she's actually quite talented. The big news here is, though, that, Julia Garner is not a dude, and Silver Surfer is a dude. So what the heck is going on?
So I keep seeing posts online, like apologists who are like, guys, it's not the Norrin Rad version of the character. It's the Shala Bal version of the character.
Right. Yeah, Shala Bal is Norrin Rad's love interest back on Zen Law when he was living on that planet prior to his servitude as a Herald of Galactus. The only time Shala Bal has ever been the Silver Surfer was in an alternate future timeline in the Earth X books, which is actually my favorite story. In that universe, the real Galactus died, and Silver Surfer, finding himself without purpose, turned his former lover Shala Bal into a Silver Surfer, and they soared the spaceways together. There's not a whole lot of precedent for Shala Bal being the Silver Surfer. And my initial reaction to this news was pure rage, I will say. I was pretty upset. Julia Garner's acting skills notwithstanding, because I do have faith that she will turn in a stellar performance regardless of the character's gender. But I went on to Reddit to see what everybody else was saying about it, and somebody brought up a great point. So it's well established that the Fantastic Four film is largely going to take place in another universe within the multiverse. And further evidence of this fact was on display on the April 4th poster that Marvel Studios released saying Happy 4/4 Day. In the background of that poster, we see this very futuristic non-Earth city, basically. So if the Fantastic Four are spending the movie in an alternate universe, it's highly likely that this will be an alternate universe version of Silver Surfer, where instead of Norrin Rad sacrificing himself, it was Shala Bal who did it. And while I would always prefer to see Norrin Rad as the character, the reason I'm coming to terms with this news a little bit better is because I don't think when we finally do get introduced to Norrin Rad as the Silver Surfer, we're going to want a rehash of what's happening in this alternate universe. It makes sense for things to be different if the Fantastic Four movie is not in the main timeline. I don't want to see Silver Surfer here and then see that story just redone again in the 616 timeline.
Well, you're assuming that we're going to get an origin story for the Silver Surfer in the Fantastic Four movie.
Even if we don't, I think they're trying to stick with an alternate cast of characters for this alternate dimension. That way things don't feel rehashed when they finally come to the main Earth.
When I first heard the news, I was just laughing my ass off. Not only at the casting choice, but also in seeing Marvel fanboys trying to justify the choice.
But I do think that the justification is there.
Who the hell cares if this is an alternate world?
It's an alternate universe Silver Surfer. They don't want to do the rehash.
You don't have to rehash it. Only tell it once.
If you see the Silver Surfer's origin story in this Fantastic Four movie, and it was Norrin Rad, and then they come to the main timeline, and then you have a new Silver Surfer who's being introduced to the team all over again.
No,
they have to,
have it be the same Silver Surfer and have him be upset that he can never make it back to his home world in the other universe. It's that fucking simple.
You haven't seen the script.
I don't need to see. Why would I need to see the script?
Maybe wait to judge until you see the movie. Yeah, you don't know how it's going to go. It may make perfect sense.
Or it didn't need to be done in the first place.
Well, I haven't seen the script, so I wouldn't know.
Oh my gosh. It doesn't matter how good the script is. What matters is that Norrin Rad is the Silver Surfer, and they're changing it. It doesn't matter how good that reason is for why they changed it.
Yeah, Norrin Rad is the Silver Surfer in the primary Marvel universe. They go into another dimension in the movie.
How do you know that? How do you know they just don't start off in an alternate dimension and then make their way to the 616.
The source was a scooper, Daniel RPK, who's had legit scoops in the past. And it's highly suspected that's the reason they've been out of the MCU this whole time.
Still not a good enough reason to me. They could have gone to another dimension where they found the Silver Surfer, who was Nora and Rad, who eventually could have come back with them into the 616.
Or they could go into an alternate dimension where they see alternate versions of familiar characters that they will be encountering in the 616 universe. That works too.
That's dumb.
I guess. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to judge until I see it.
I guess I'm the true Marvel fan here, guys. Joseph has given up on Marvel. He's just like accepting everything they throw at him and not being passionate about Marvel at all. I'll be mad for him.
I'll accept changes made to an alternate universe for sure. So we'll go ahead and move past this topic and move on to our question of the week. What would be your favorite out of left field casting choice for an alternate universe Marvel or DC character? Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message can be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram. Be sure to answer before April 13th. But I think that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and move on to the main event, where we find out who would win in a fight between the sorcerers of Eclipso and Malekith. Alright, Eclipso versus Malekith. This is a sorcerer duel that we're getting into in homage to the eclipse that happened yesterday.
We'd actually been thinking about doing this duel for a while. It was thought up by one of our executive producers. I can't remember which one offhand.
Brandon Estergard.
That's right. And once I heard it, I thought it was going to be a really cool matchup. We haven't reviewed Thor: The Dark World. It's one of the MCU films that we have not talked about yet. Of course, Malekith is the primary antagonist in that film, so people are pretty familiar with him. But I also think people are somewhat familiar with Eclipso as well. He is a pretty powerful villain in DC Comics. He hasn't been in any movies, but he was the primary villain of Stargirl Season 2, if anyone's seen that.
The version of Malekith that was in Thor: The Dark World is not really akin to his comic book counterpart. The backstory to Malekith is actually quite interesting, so I can't wait to get into it. But to explain the methodology behind our duels, let's go to our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ9K, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the contestants is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the character's statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomize the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel power grid, from which the DC characters' statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 1,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character. The contestant with the higher percentage is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither character should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations would play out beat for beat. And I believe it's my turn to go first with the Marvel character, so let me go ahead and tell you all about Malekith the Accursed. Malekith the Dark Elf was born in the realm of Svartalheim, the 13th son of a 13th son, whose father and brothers were slain as soldiers in a war with the Rock Trolls. Malekith's mother promised her only remaining child that he would not have to die as a soldier, and she sold him into slavery where he would work in turmoil as a corpse burner for a group of undertakers. After years of disposing bodies from the war's battlefields, young Malekith was captured by the rock trolls who imprisoned him. One of his fellow prisoners was an old dark elf wizard who used magic to help the two escape the trolls, and Malekith became the sorcerer's apprentice. He trained in magic over the years and was noted by the old wizard as one of the most gifted spellcasters he'd ever seen, perhaps strong enough to end the war. In response to his mentor's request to unite the Dark Elf clan and bring about peace, Malekith stabbed the wizard repeatedly, telling him that the elves' strength is forged from the tragedies of war. The old sorcerer, with his dying act, cast a curse on Malekith's face, marking half of it in black for the rest of his days. Returning to his childhood home, Malekith fed his mom to her pack of hunting dogs, claiming his clan's title as the Lord of the Wild Hunt, and going on to become the King of the Dark Elves due to the fear he instilled in his people. For his frequent acts of war and aggression, Odin, the All-Father of the Nine Realms, banished Malekith to Limbo, where he remained for centuries. However, in the present day, the Dark Elf King struck an alliance with Loki, the Norse god of mischief and brother to the mighty hero Thor. You can learn more about Loki in his duel against Ares, and more about Thor in his duel against Wonder Woman. Escaping to Limbo with Loki's help, Malekith made his way to Earth, where a powerful artifact known as the Casket of Ancient Winters was being hidden. Malekith unearthed the casket, and though Thor was able to defeat him, the Dark Elf managed to shatter the artifact. This unleashed massive blizzards across the world, which the Avengers had to contend with as Thor imprisoned Malekith back on Asgard. Previously, Malekith forced the strongest Dark Elf in his army, Algrim the Strong, to don a powerful armor that would make him virtually indestructible, and Algrim became a cursed warrior known as Curse. Seeking revenge against Malekith for how he was treated, Curse infiltrated Asgard to seek him out in prison. However, Malekith had escaped Asgard's prison by taking on the form of Thor's friend, named Balder the Brave, who at the time was about to be crowned the Lord of Asgard when Thor denied the role. Curse saw through Malekith's disguise, though, and seemingly killed his former leader. Years later, it all turned out to be a ruse for Malekith's escape when the Dark Elf was discovered to be alive. Malekith would later go on to use Curse's hatred for him to achieve his own ends when he cast a spell that made Thor appear as Malekith, inciting Curse to recruit a band of mythical monsters to go up against the Thunder God. In the end, Thor won out with the help of his friends Sif, Heimdall, Volstagg, Hogun, Fandral, and Beta Ray Bill. Malekith even manipulated Hela, the goddess of death, into the fray, but she was able to clear Curse's mind to break Malekith's spell, and she took Malekith with her back to her domain of Hell. He later escaped and stole the Casket of Ancient Winters, which had been reforged. Malekith used it to summon a demon made of ice to seek out Asgardian blood, then froze the golden city of Asgard with a coldness that spread even into the realm of Hell. As Malekith attacked Odin, who at the time was resting in the Odin sleep, Thor was able to successfully defend his father after obtaining an artifact from Odin's vault called the Gem of Infinite Suns. With it, Thor defeated Malekith and the Ice Demon and returned the coldness back into the casket, which he then sealed closed. Malekith later set out to conquer all the realms by amassing his Dark Elf army, allying with the Frost Giants, and killing anyone who didn't pledge their allegiance to him. This forced Thor to assemble a League of Realms, uniting warriors from every land to stop Malekith's army. This included Sir Ivory Honeyshot of the Light Elves, Augie the Mountain Giant, Ud the Troll, Screwbeard the Dwarf, and Lady Wazira of the Dark Elves. Together, their band defeated Malekith's army, but the Dark Elves refused to let their king be imprisoned. From his throne, Malekith later plotted to steal the 10 rings of the Chinese villain known as the Mandarin, whom you can learn more about in our Abracadabra vs. Mandarin episode. This led to Iron Man taking the fight to Malekith in Svartalheim, wearing a suit made of literal iron, which was the Dark Elves' only weakness. For a time, Thor became unworthy of wielding his Uru hammer Mjolnir, an opportunity Malekith sought to take advantage of. Coming to Midgard, aka Earth, the Dark Elf easily overtook Thor, slicing off his left arm in battle. Jane Foster, Thor's romantic interest, was able to wield Mjolnir and used it to defend Thor, becoming the new God of Thunder. Malekith was able to disappear with Thor's arm, though, and burned it to ash. Soon after, Malekith started a War of the Realms, where it was revealed that he had formed his own league called the Dark Council. This included himself, Ulik the Troll, a nameless lava being from Muspelheim, King Laufey of the Frost Giants, a Minotaur, Loki, and the Asgardian known as Enchantress, whom you can learn more about in her duel against DC's Enchantress. The sorceress manipulated Queen Elsa of the Light Elves into marrying Malekith, uniting the realms of Svartalfheim and Alfheim, and making his dark army unstoppable. He began taking over the other realms one by one, including Asgard itself, until only Midgard remained. His forces besieged Europe, which Malekith dubbed New Svartalfheim, where he used dark magic to wield the Venom symbiote, adding to his power. It took all of Earth's heroes dividing up into strike forces to defend the rest of the planet, and 4 variants of Thor himself to take on Malekith. In the end, Thor was able to wield Mjolnir once again, using it to separate Malekith from the symbiote. In a last-ditch effort, Malekith, as the Lord of the Wild Hunt, tried to summon a legion of supernatural dog wolves to devour Thor, but his control over the beasts was broken by his fear, and they devoured their master instead. Malekith's soul was then sent to Hell, where Hela had him crucified with his eyes sewn open, forced to watch for all eternity the innocent, childlike portion of his soul, untainted by war, playing with his former hounds. Powers-wise, Malekith is a dark elf, possessing innate physical enhancements, including strength enough to lift 10 tons. Increased with magic, he can improve his physicality to lift up to 90 tons. He also has enhanced speed, durability, agility, longevity, and healing speed. As the most powerful Dark Elf sorcerer, he can wield magic energies to cast all manner of spells. This includes, but is not limited to, shapeshifting, illusion casting, teleportation, matter transmutation, hypnosis, telekinesis, and the conjuring of eldritch energy blasts and shields. He is also a skilled swordsman, and as the Lord of the Wild Hunt, he wields a hunting horn that lets him summon a legion of supernatural dogs that can track and devour his opponents. Finally, Malekith is an experienced strategist and master manipulator. Like all Dark Elves, he has one major weakness, and that is to iron. And that's Malekith.
Well, you weren't kidding when you were saying that the version in Thor the Dark World is different from the comics version. The comics version is so much cooler!
Yeah, I really like the heavy fantasy element that Malekith brings to the world of Thor comic books, given that he is a dark elf from one of the 9 realms. In the movie, the Dark Elves were almost like sci-fi guys. They had like guns and lasers and stuff like that. It was a little bit weird. The movie definitely took a weird turn with the character. And also, Christopher Eccleston's characterization was not really accurate either, because Malekith is like a very boastful, talkative, braggart type of character. He's not like quiet and brooding like Eccleston's performance was.
And I'm not going to lie, I actually kind of liked Malekith in Thor the Dark World. I don't hate that movie as much as other people do, but now I kind of don't like it. So you ruined the movie for me.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about the movie next week in our next episode.
All right. Well, moving on to my character's backstory, which is way cooler even than that, let me tell you all about Eclipso. In the beginning, God, aka the Presence in DC Comics, created the heavens and the earth, and appointed various angels and spirits to represent various aspects of himself in the material world. One of these aspects, Gilead, became the embodiment of God's divine wrath. It wasn't long before Gilead became corrupted by power, as his wrath was not tempered by vengeance or a sense of justice. The Presence chose a new embodiment for his wrath, a former fallen angel who sought redemption, the Spectre, who you can learn more about in our Spectre vs. Galactus episode. The Spectre split Gilead in 2, imprisoning one portion in the deepest crater on the dark side of the moon, and the other within a massive black diamond, known as the Heart of Darkness, that had been mined from the planet Apocalypse. The Heart of Darkness attracted evil, and so was hidden for most of human civilization, though it was eventually discovered in the late 1890s by an explorer named Henry Gordon, within an ancient temple deep in the African jungle. The diamond corrupted Henry, who killed his companion, a university professor, once they found it. Henry took the diamond to a jeweler, and tasked him with dividing the diamond into 1,000 identical gemstones within 1 year's time. When Henry returned for the diamonds, he had the jeweler killed by 2 thugs, who stole all but one of the diamonds from Henry and sold over 100 of the gemstones before Henry found them a week later and killed them. The splitting of the diamond weakened the prison-like nature of it, which allowed the spirit of Gilead, now referring to itself as Eclipso, to influence anyone in possession of one of the black diamonds if they were angry, or to possess them outright if they were violent in nature, though Eclipso could easily be banished from his host when exposed to sunlight. By the 1960s, one of the gemstones eventually found its way back to the African jungle and came into the possession of a tribal sorcerer named Mofir. When a solar energy scientist named Bruce Gordon traveled to the jungle to view the solar eclipse, a possessed Mofir attacked Bruce, scratching him with his diamond before falling off of a cliff. Bruce took the diamond back with him to America, where, anytime there was an eclipse, he became possessed by Eclipso, now a frequent foe of the DC superhero community. Unaware of the nature of the diamond, Bruce simply believed that Eclipso was an alternate, superpowered evil persona of his, though when he learned the nature of the diamond, he was able to prevent himself from becoming the villain through solar-powered technology. It was later revealed that Henry Gordon was Bruce Gordon's time-traveling son, who traveled to the past intending to destroy the Heart of Darkness and prevent his father from being used by Eclipso, but was corrupted by the diamond instead. Eventually, the time-traveling hero known as Mon-El discovered a fortress that Eclipso had erected on the dark side of the moon and became possessed by the other half of the spirit while investigating. This allowed Eclipso to merge both halves of his spirit and managed to possess all of Earth's heroes, whom he brought to the moon. Bruce Gordon was able to free everyone, however, alongside a team of scientists who wielded solar weaponry that Bruce had designed. In an epic battle against Eclipso on the moon, the villain was seemingly destroyed by a solar bomb. But because the Heart of Darkness still existed, so too did Eclipso's spirit. He next appeared in the fictional South American nation of Parador, where he possessed a drug lord known as the Count, and eventually possessed the country's president, allowing him to take control over the entire nation and its army. Seeking vengeance against Bruce Gordon, Eclipso attacked Bruce's fiance's father, resulting in Bruce gathering several allies, including his fiancée Mona, a fellow scientist named Cave Carson, and the Creeper, who you can learn more about in our Creeper vs. Nightcrawler episode. Bruce and the others ventured into Parador, only to be captured by Eclipso and force-fed black diamonds before being set free. The ordeal stirred Amanda Waller and other heroes to action, though US forces suffered major casualties as a result of warring with Parador's forces. Amanda Waller, Bruce Gordon, and others were put on trial by the UN for attempting to overthrow a sovereign nation, and Eclipso threatened to nuke the planet if they weren't found guilty. As heroes around the world prepared to take on Eclipso, the Phantom Stranger and the Spectre united to fight the villain, managing to gather all of the black diamonds around the world and reforming the Full Heart of Darkness, imprisoning Eclipso once again. At one point, when the Spectre lost faith in God, Eclipso managed to break free of the diamond and possess the Spectre. The Spectre was eventually able to overcome and re-trap Eclipso in the Heart of Darkness before he crushed the diamond to dust. The fragments of the Heart of Darkness were eventually gathered by a man named Alex Montez, however, who was enraged over the death of his cousin caused by Eclipso. Save for a single shard, Alex liquefied the diamond and injected it into himself. Having tattooed his entire body in occult glyphs and symbology, Eclipso was trapped within Alex, who took up his moniker and power as a new version of the villain. Though Alex later became an anti-hero and ally of the Justice Society and Black Adam, he was eventually injured, with part of his tattoo skin damaged, which broke the glyphs and freed Eclipso, who killed Alex's girlfriend, which caused Alex to kill himself. The single remaining gemstone used by Alex was then acquired by Superboy Prime, who teamed with Alexander Luthor Jr. of Earth 3 to restore the multiverse in the Infinite Crisis event. Superboy Prime gave the gemstone to Jean Loring, the ex-wife of Ray Palmer, the Atom. Jean, as Eclipso, manipulated the Spectre into destroying magic, which he nearly successfully did. As the sorcerers and magicians of Earth fought back, one of them, an anti-hero known as Nightshade, teleported Eclipso into an orbit around the sun, where Eclipso would be trapped and tormented by the light. Due to his connection to Bruce Gordon, Eclipso eventually made his way back to Earth and took possession of Bruce once again, though Bruce found he was able to control Eclipso as long as he controlled his temper. When Eclipso managed to kill Bruce's wife Mona, he was able to take full control of Bruce's body and wage another campaign against Earth's heroes, revealing to the angelic hero Zariel, whom he defeated, that his ultimate goal was to kill God. You can learn more about Zariel in our Zariel vs. Archangel episode. After killing the Spectre and absorbing all of his power, Eclipso destroyed the moon, just before attempting to destroy the Earth and its inhabitants' love for God. With the combined might of all of Earth's heroes, however, Eclipso was defeated. In post-Flashpoint continuity, Eclipso long ago possessed Lord Kala, a scion of House Onyx and House Diamond in the fantasy dimension of Neela, aka Gemworld. Kala nearly conquered all of Neela, but was defeated by Lady Chandra of House Amethyst, who trapped him in a gem called the Black Diamond, which was banished to Earth's realm. Powers-wise, Eclipso possesses a vast amount of dark magical energy that grants him vast strength, invulnerability, immortality, telekinesis, and telepathy. He can emit this energy, often by focusing his gaze through a fragment of the Heart of Darkness. From his left eye, devastating rays of darkness, and from his light right eye, paralyzing bursts of black light. He can alter his size and can also manipulate the environment around him to create thunderstorms, floods, and other phenomena often attributed to God's wrath. He can fly or teleport through shadow, and he can influence or possess others, particularly if they are in contact with a fragment of the Heart of Darkness. Since part of his spirit is confined to the Heart of Darkness, destroying it can weaken him, and he is also vulnerable to bright light. And that's Eclipso.
If only Malekith could summon bright light, which I don't think he can as a member of the Dark Elves.
Yes!
But I don't know if Eclipso can summon iron, so I hope he can't.
Oh, one more thing he can do, I forgot to mention, is not summon iron, but he can create constructs of shadow and gemstone as of recent comics.
Oh, interesting. That's pretty cool. That's a cool visual. They need to put Eclipso in a bigger movie or something than just, Stargirl Season 2.
Although he was freaky as hell in Stargirl Season 2. Like, there was some horror movie type shit.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I got to check that show out sometime.
It's not bad. We should have reviewed it, honestly.
Well, that's I blame you.
Yeah,
for that
that's
one.
fine. I'll take the blame.
In a world where fantasies collide and heroes clash, one podcast network rises above the rest. Prepare yourself for the ultimate showdowns in comic books, video games, movies, and anime. The Dynamite Podcast Network presents Console Combat, where video game legends brawl every Monday. Dynamic Duel, where comic book titans smash every Tuesday. Max Destruction, where TV and action heroes battle every Wednesday. And Sendro World, where anime champions clash every Thursday. Join us as we speculate on the matches and, armed with the power of mathematical simulations, discover who will emerge victorious. Visit dynamicpodcast.com, where we settle the debate and settle the score.
Well, now that we got their histories and abilities out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not this speculation, but it's fun to imagine how this fight could play out. AJ9K, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the characters have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other character is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the contestants will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The contestants must earn victory on their own merit.
All right, then, let's get into it. Eclipso and Malekith meet on the battlefield. Who goes first?
I think Malekith is going to see Eclipso and conjure a blade, like a Chris sword type thing. It's a sword with like a wavy blade.
Right, yeah.
He's going to see Eclipso and probably assume that the guy is cursed just like him, since they have similar face marks. And Malekith's going to be like, let me fix the other side for you. And from his sword, he's going to shoot out an eldritch flame blast right at Eclipso's face, just melting that shit right off.
Okay, I mean, so as this fireball is coming at Eclipso, he's going to generate a shield made of gemstone to block it. Then he's going to hold up a shard of the Heart of Darkness to his right eye, flashing this burst of black light that's going to paralyze Malekith. All right, so Malekith is paralyzed, and by the time he even realizes what's happening, Eclipso has already moved right over to him and created his own sword of crystal and shadow that he's just going to plunge right into Malekith's chest.
No, because Malekith teleports. He disappears in this green flash, and Eclipso doesn't see him anymore. All he hears is Malekith's laughter just echoing from all directions. And it's like, it'll start off quietly at first, but it's going to get like louder and louder, just like deafening Eclipso as Malekith suddenly appears, knocking Eclipso's sword out of his hand, and then catching it, and then using both of the swords like scissors to lop off Eclipso's head.
Wait, he took Eclipso's sword?
Yes.
Okay, well, as Malekith is holding Eclipso's shadow sword, before he can decapitate Eclipso, the shadow blade moves like liquid up Malekith's arm and across his body before disappearing into his ears. So now Malekith is possessed by Eclipso with like an eclipse symbol over his face, and Eclipso is going to force Malekith to cut off his own head.
Well, I mean, if Malekith sees this like liquid shadow moving up over his body, that's going to give him time to come up with a counterspell pretty quick. And, like as a dark elf, he's familiar with shadow magic, so he's going to take control of this shadow, lift it off of himself, and like reshape it into the form of like this raven that is going to fly at Eclipso and snatch the black diamond that he's carrying away from him.
Okay, well, Eclipso, he's going to quickly grow to like 3 stories and just snatch the bird before it could fly away with his diamond. And Eclipso is going to just look down at Malekith and slam his fist down right on him, just crushing his body into the ground.
Okay, but, Eclipso is tall and a little bit slow, so as his fist is coming down, Malekith summons the Casket of Ancient Winters artifact from out of thin air, and he uses it to freeze Eclipso's arm right through.
What? Dude, you can't do that.
What? Why not?
How is that allowed?
Why does Eclipso get the Heart of Darkness and Malekith doesn't get the Casket of Ancient Winters, like in his back pocket?
Because Eclipso always has a shard of the Heart of Darkness.
Yeah, and like the Casket of Ancient Winters is small enough to be portable, It's smaller than it was in the movies, in the first Thor movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's tiny. It's like the size of a small jewelry box kind of thing.
Oh.
So this works, Eclipso's fist comes down, and his whole arm just shatters right off with, Malekith protecting himself with a magic energy shield, smiling and then hiding the casket again.
Dang. Okay. So Eclipso's pissed off right now. So as he shrinks back down to his normal height, his eyes just glowing red, he's going to conjure this violent thunderstorm that rains lightning across the environment and zaps Malekith like numerous times until he's literally fried.
Malekith deals with lightning all the time when he fights Thor. He's no stranger to a lightning attack. All he's going to do here is transform his body into like this mist cloud, and that's going to sink into the earth below them. And therefore the lightning's just, going to strike the ground. No big deal. But then all of a sudden the ground shakes, like there's an earthquake, and a group of rock trolls are going to rise from the ground and just beat the shit out of Eclipso with their rock clubs.
Oh, dang. Wait, so is Eclipso in the rock trolls, or he just conjured them?
Malekith's still in the ground in his mist form, and he just conjured the rock trolls.
Okay. So Eclipso's storm, vanished as soon as Malekith did. So the sun is probably shining right now, and right when the rock trolls emerge, Eclipso is going to telekinetically slam them all together to form a single, giant stone ball that he levitates into the sky to cast a shadow upon the environment, an eclipse that increases his power. So wherever Malekith is right now, Eclipso is going to telekinetically pull his mist body into his grasp and hold him, and blasting Malekith point blank with this dark energy blast that's so powerful, it's going to send Malekith crashing through the rock troll moon and all the way to the sun, where he dies.
That's not even a real eclipse. How does that count?
It's counted before in the comics, where things could block the sun. It's like, oh, it's an eclipse.
Okay. I'm going to say that when Eclipso does summon Malekith into his grasp, he's holding onto his hunting horn. And as he blows into it, he's going to summon the Wild Hunt, which is this pack of supernatural dogs and also a winged white tiger. And they're all just going to devour Eclipso whole. And Eclipso is going to be like, oh God, they're killing me. And Malekith is going to be laughing and having a good time. Match over.
Okay, so 3 things. 1, that tiger is super random. 2, Eclipso's not going to be saying anything if this happens. And it's not going to happen because 3, that Wild Hunt is going to follow Malekith's ass into the sun because he's already there by the time he blows that horn.
Well, 1, don't knock the white tiger because it's badass. You know, it has wings and Malekith rides it and it looks awesome. 2, you're wrong. And 3, let's run the stats to see which of these scenarios happens.
Sure. Okay, so either Malekith gets blasted into the sun, or he blows his horn in time to have the Wild Hunt devour Eclipso.
We'll go ahead and input the stats, run the simulations, and come back with a winner.
AGNK, hit it.
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results, simulations complete.
All right, this is a pretty fun matchup. It's always really hard to speculate on matches between wizards and sorcerers and like magical entities and stuff like that, because they can almost do anything. So you have to be really creative and make sure that all of the spells are in keeping with the themes of the character and stuff like that. But that being said, I think we did a pretty good job with that speculation. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, both characters are really powerful. Malekith ended up being more powerful than I anticipated. I thought Eclipso was going to totally take this, considering, he's pretty much the equivalent of the Spectre. But Malekith definitely held his own.
Yeah, Malekith goes, toe-to-toe with Thor. And obviously Thor can beat the Spectre. So there you go.
Galactus couldn't even beat the Spectre. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers! Come on, man. Come on. Everybody go listen to the Spectre versus Galactus duel episode now. But not before you get the results here. Stat-wise, Eclipso was more durable and stronger and could seemingly do more damage with less effort. The dude is really powerful. But Malekith, we said, has him on fighting skill because he does a lot of sword play, especially when he was wielding like the Necro Sword in the comics. He was able to successfully best Thor in sword combat by chopping his arm off. And Eclipso hasn't really been shown to do that kind of stuff too much.
Well, he actually is shown to do a lot of sword fighting, but he also tends to lose a lot of those sword fights.
Because of Eclipso's strength, he seemingly tends to tank a lot of attacks directed at him, whereas Malekith avoids most attacks that are directed at him, either by, transmuting his form into a mist or by pulling up a Eldritch Shield or something like that. Teleporting, so we said Malekith had a slight edge over Eclipso when it comes to evasiveness. But both these guys are super versatile. They're pretty smart and strategic.
Yeah, and they're both really fast. They can both teleport.
So all that said, Jonathan, who do you think is going to win this, and why do you think it's Malekith?
I don't think it's Malekith. I think it's Eclipso. I think it's going to be closer than I thought it was going to be, but I still think Eclipso is going to take the lead here, as do our Instagram followers, 68% of whom said that Eclipso was going to take the win. I don't think it's going to be a win percentage that high in the simulation results, but I think Eclipso is still going to get the win. I'm honestly surprised Eclipso beat Malekith in the poll, considering I tend to think of these things as popularity contests. And since Malekith was in Thor the Dark World, I thought more people would actually vote for him. But I think it just kind of goes to show how much people really don't like Thor the Dark World.
Well, let's see if these people are right. AG9K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
Okay, the winner between Eclipso and Malekith is...
Don't act like you're frozen.
It was Eclipso.
Yes.
Yeah, Eclipso, out of the 1,000 matches, won 531 battles over Malekith's 469 wins. So it was 53.1% over 46.9%.
See, that's actually closer than I thought it was going to be, but I'll still take the win, because Eclipso is dope.
I think Eclipso is lame. I think eclipses in general are lame. It's just a big shadow. Get over it, people. Who cares? I think you're lame, Jonathan, big time. And I think we should wrap this shit up.
Don't be a sore loser. People wanted Eclipso to win. The people got what they wanted. We should all be happy.
I am people.
Yeah, but you don't count. Marvel fans aren't real people anyway.
What are you talking about? Of course we're real people. We have real feelings that get really hurt when we lose these duel matches. Okay? Punch us, we bleed.
Okay.
Don't actually. All right, that does it for this episode, guys. Let us know what you thought about the duel results by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Instagram, which you can find a link to in our show notes, or by visiting our website at dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you could also find a link to our Patreon page, where you could join our Dynamic 2.0 tier and chat with us and fellow listeners, our Fantastic 4 tier, which gets you bonus content each month, our X-Force tier that makes you an executive producer of this podcast, or our newest tier that lets you join our Dynamike podcast network.
And please don't forget to rate this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website.
And actually, if you've made it this far into the episode, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Our numbers are abysmal there. Most of our listeners actually come through our podcast RSS feed. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and subscribe. In our next episode, as we mentioned earlier, we will be doing a throwback review of the film Thor: The Dark World. I think it'll be interesting to revisit this film after a lot of terrible Marvel projects like the Marvels have come out.
Watch your language, okay? Words mean things. You can't just call the Marvels terrible when it was, in fact, not terrible and, adequate. That's how you could describe the Marvels, okay? If you want to talk about terrible, look at a movie like Catwoman, okay? That's a proper word for that movie. All right. But that does it for this episode, guys. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson,
John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Brandon Estergard,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Scott Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Andrew Schunk,
and Dean Maleski for helping make this podcast possible. We'll talk to you guys next week. Up, up, and away!
True believers.
Once upon a time I was falling in love, now I'm only falling apart. There's nothing I can do. A total eclipse of the fart.